Did you know you can advertise on podcasts?
Don't act like you're not impressed.
Find out more at podvertise.com.au. That's podvertise with an s.com.au. Oscast. The Mental Health Show with Mark Aiston.
I'm looking forward to this. I read a really interesting article and was very inspired by the story that was in Adelaide now late last week by Col James about a gentleman by the name of Stephen Coard. And Stephen has become very well known in recent times for promoting a message of happiness. I'm going to get him to talk to you a little bit about him. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail off the top. I want Stephen to explain it to you all. Stephen, welcome.
How you going, mate?
I'm well. How are you? You happy?
Excellent. Yeah. Happy whenever I choose.
That's a wonderful thing. We're going to talk about that in a bit more detail. For my listeners, tell people what you do with these signs.
Every morning I usually leave here about 6 o'clock and get into the city about 6:30 in the morning, and I sit at the end of top of Mole till about 9 o'clock in the morning, and I just sit there with a sign. Sometimes it will say "Smile, it's free," or "Smile for yourself," or "Smile for you." And it's just trying to get people to smile for themselves. And each time they do, they actually release a slight amount of serotonin into their own brain, lifting their own spirit.
Yeah, and so there is method to the madness, Stephen.
Oh, absolutely.
How long have you been doing that for? How long have you been holding the signs out for?
Just over 3 years now. I used to do it in... Sorry.
Yeah,
I used to do it in Murray Bridge, walking up and down the street. And when I sit in Adelaide, I actually get a chance to speak to people and, pass on a bit of a message. And, when they ask, I actually get to pass on the key to mental health, which I found for myself. And if it makes sense to them, it is actually the remote control of their own mental health. Yeah,
which is wonderful, and we'll get to that. And sorry to interrupt earlier there. So were you living in Murray Bridge? Were you up that way? Yeah.
Yeah, I lived in Murray Bridge from 2010 until earlier on this year.
Can you remember the first time you took the sign out?
Yeah, I do actually. It stemmed from boredom. I was bored one Sunday afternoon, so I wrote "Smile, it's free" on a piece of board and went for a walk up to the shops and back, and the response was quite amazing.
Isn't that wonderful? And what did you write it on? Was it just a bit of board from the backyard or something?
Yeah, just a piece of MDF that I found with, and just wrote it on there with one of the paint textures.
What sort of responses do you get?
Well, when I walk down the side of the road, I get a lot of beeps and thumbs up and smiles and, a few yahoos. And
Do you get people stopping and wanting to talk to you?
Yeah, I get quite a few people that will stop. I've made quite a few friends out of it, actually, as well. I've met some really interesting people. And we have some good conversations.
What do you talk about?
Generally just people will ask, what am I doing and why I do it. And, it's just a message reminding people that smiles are free and that we should indulge in everything free, I believe.
You haven't smiled. You haven't smiled all your life, though, have you?
No. I had a good upbringing. Like, my parents were great. They taught me so much and looked after me really well. And then when I was about 16, I moved out of home and became homeless not long afterwards. And spent most of my life from 16 until just before my 50th birthday homeless. So
that's incredible. And you told me that a couple of hours ago when I had a chat to you on the phone. I was standing out the back of Radio Italia Uno here in the car park, and I nearly dropped my phone. That's just extraordinary. I know you weren't homeless for the entire time, but for much of it you were. You look back at those times. How do you feel about that?
It was, they were hard times, but I did look at it a lot as it's a holiday. I treated it as a holiday. A lot of the time I lived down by the coast, and I'd go for a swim in the morning and sometimes go for a bit of a scuba dive and maybe catch a fish or two and cook my breakfast on the beach and then talk to people, get to meet people every day. And, it was, sometimes it was hard, but other times it wasn't. So,
Why were you homeless, Stephen?
because of my own actions. Not every time. Sometimes, quite often I'd apply for somewhere to live, and because I had no history, so no references, I could never get a place. Even later in life, I never got my own place.
That's probably a problem for a lot of people, I would have thought.
Yeah, it does seem to be that way. I mean, it is hard for people, even with references. It's very hard for a lot of people to get their own place.
Paint a picture for our listeners. Tell us some of the places over the years where you've slept.
I've slept in my car. I've just slept down on the beach underneath jetties. Slept underneath the bridges a few times. And then the last... I actually slept down the main street of Murray Bridge, raising awareness for the homeless last year, just trying to let people know that there are homeless even in small towns. People couch surfing, they're still homeless. They don't even have a room. You know what I mean? It's a lot of people weren't aware of that, and they're quite shocked. And
I would imagine that over your journey, there would have been times where you would have been in danger as a result of sleeping out?
Oh, for sure. I've been robbed numerous times. You can't actually own anything when you're on the street. If it doesn't fit in a backpack, you don't own it. It'll go missing. Even bedding, it's amazing. Quite a few people do rob the homeless.
Did you have an animal? Did you have a dog or anything like that?
No, well, you didn't have a yard to be safe in, and so, no, I've never really had animals with me when I was homeless. So,
as part of your journey, Stephen, mental health has been an issue for you, yeah?
Oh, absolutely. Quite often I had the feeling of, hopelessness, worthlessness, uselessness, and it led to suicidal tendencies. I was thinking of committing suicide on a daily basis.
And if you don't mind me asking, your mental health history, how did it start? How did it manifest itself?
Just through damage over the years. Couldn't keep a girlfriend because I was an angry person, and that I was never like that when I was young. But situations happen. You come across different instances, and they do put quite oppressive. I had a lot of oppressive behaviour towards me, and I didn't know how to handle that. So I became an angry man.
And shame? Tell me about shame.
Yeah, there was a lot of shame, especially around homelessness. The stigma around homelessness is that we're worthless. We're just out there doing nothing, and it does cause a lot of shame.
And when you wake up in the morning or in years gone by, I guess your purpose in life was just to stay alive and to make sure that you had somewhere to sleep that night.
Yeah. Well, quite often if you're in your car, like when I was down on the coast, I'd get moved off by the council because you're not allowed to sleep in your car and you're not allowed to sleep on the beach. So it was definitely a battle. And being on the dole when I was homeless, it's people say, you've got no bills. You've got no rent to pay, so you should be living well. But the thing is, you can't store anything. We don't have a fridge or a freezer, so you can't store any food. You sort of buy takeaway, and very quickly it adds up. So your dole sort of doesn't last. So
in recent times, I'm presuming, Stephen, you've had discussions with other homeless people. What sort of discussions have you had with them, and what advice did you feel comfortable giving them?
Well, I actually don't give advice. I just speak words, and what they choose to do with those words is entirely up to them. Advice tends to get you into trouble.
Yeah, that's a very good point, actually. Yeah.
Yeah. No, what I've found is that back in the 80s and into the 90s, it was the homeless tended to back each other up and look after each other wherever we could. But I found in later times when I was homeless, like the last 5-6 years, it's not like that. They turn on each other and rob each other, and it's just it's sort of, it has changed. But,
and I guess, it has. And times have changed. There seems to be more pressure. It's been a very, very stressful 8 or 9 months during COVID. There seems to be even more of a tendency these days to achieve at the highest level. And I guess what I'm leading up to saying is, there seems to be, a widening of the gap between the haves and the have-nots. Tell me about that.
Oh, absolutely. It's the haves have quite a bit, and the have-nots have just about nothing. You can't have anything if you're on the street and at rock bottom. So, yeah, it is widening. It seems to be widening every year. Do
you feel, in a general sense, the government is, and I don't mean to politicise this, but do you feel as though the government locally, the state government is doing enough for homelessness?
Well, they actually did. This is the first time that I've noticed that something has majorly been done anywhere in the world for the homeless, where they dragged us all off the street, put us in hotels and motels during COVID.
Yes.
And all the ones that were prepared to do the paperwork and put in the hard yards, looking at houses, and, just the waiting as well was another big thing that a lot of people gave up and just went back to the street. But the ones that hung in there, we've been housed.
That's a very good point. That's a very good point. Yeah. And of course, for those who haven't had a house or have been homeless for a long time, all of a sudden getting a house is wonderful, but you need to adjust, don't you? You need to readjust and to look after the house and to pay the bills and all the things that you haven't been used to doing. I mean, how would one cope with that? How would one learn that?
We actually haven't been just thrown into the houses and had no support. I got put in by Street to Home, signed up with them, and they've actually been, it's ongoing support. They come and check up, make sure I'm doing all right, and give me a call and text message me quite often. And yeah, it's been, the support is there. I've sort of, because I've stayed with people, I've known about paying bills and how to do it. So I've just gone with it, and I'm definitely flying forward. I've got a yard now, and I'm getting a veggie garden going, and I keep my bills. I try to pay them as soon as I get them, instead of letting them. The longer you take to pay them, there are more fees on top, like reminder notice costs you money, and so it's just best to try and pay them as quick as possible.
It's interesting, Stephen, because everything you're saying there, a lot of our listeners would be thinking, that's all obvious. But it hasn't been obvious to you, and it's not obvious to those who are homeless, is it? It is something you've got to learn.
That's exactly right, Mark. It's not obvious to a lot of us. I mean, when you've been out there and you haven't had that responsibility to just dive straight in without support, it's a hard thing. And I think that's why some have got themselves a house and have ended up back on the street. It's just they didn't have the right support to really make a go of this.
What about that's a very good point. So that support by local government and councils is so important. So when did you acquire your accommodation?
4 days before my 50th birthday, so it was an early, awesome birthday present.
And how long back is that?
June the 2nd
of this year.
Yes. Yep.
And how did you feel? Tell me how it all came about.
Well, I was at the when they first took me off the street, I was staying at the Mercure, and I was there for about a month, and then they moved me from there to the Hello Adelaide on Glen Osmond Road.
Yeah.
And they housed as many people as possible, and then on I think it was the end of May, about the 25th of May, they said, we've got a house for you to look at. So I, went along with them to have a look at the house, and I walked in, and this is amazing. It's the old 1.5 foot thick solid brick walls, and it was just beautiful. I walked up to the mantelpiece and chimney and put my arm around it and said, "This is my home. This is it. I'm going to die in this place. I love it. It's brilliant." Where is
it, Stephen?
Down at Woodville.
How wonderful. And are you sharing that with someone?
No, on my own.
You're on your own. Wow.
Yeah.
And you're cool. You're cool with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
And tell me about your veggie garden.
Well, I haven't started yet. I've just built a couple of boxes, like for raised garden beds.
Yeah.
I've poisoned off all the grass.
Yeah.
I'm actually in the process of turning that over into the soil, and I want to build some more garden boxes just out of pallets that I've found around the area. I go to some of the industrial spots and look out for pallets and ask them if, what are you doing with those pallets? And, you can have them, mate, no worries. So I use those to build my garden beds. And, just use horse manure, cow manure, that sort of thing, and put it in, and old carpet underneath them to stop the weeds growing up.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
And what about furniture? How did you go with furniture?
Well, to start with, when we first moved in, the government had organised for everyone to have, I got a bed, table and chairs, a lounge, what else did I get? A washing machine and a fridge.
Oh, for heaven's sake, you got everything. You're organised.
Yeah, absolutely. And then just from there, I poured every cent of the bonus, $5.50, that the government gave us during this time. Mm-hmm. I've poured it all into the place, like to buy garden tools, screws, brackets, that sort of thing to make up my garden beds. And I've made my own furniture as well. I found an old cupboard, kicked it to pieces, and then re-screwed it and cut it and made myself a little computer desk. And I made my own coffee table. I found some old Queen Anne legs and used a piece of door, just cut it out, and it's got little shelves in it, like a shelf on either side, so I can put all my things in there.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, it's great.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Have you got anything up on the walls? Have you put any paintings or anything on the walls or anything like that?
Yeah, I've started to. There was somebody made a poster up. There's a game called Grand Theft Auto. Yeah. And they made up a Grand Theft Auto Murray Bridge, and there were pictures all in it of different, like icons of Murray Bridge, and down in the bottom right-hand corner is me with my Smile It's Free sign. So I've put that up. My cousin made it up and got it laminated, so I've whacked that on my wall, and got given a nice picture, which is what a lovely day. So I've got that sitting above my mantelpiece, so I look at that every day and give myself that positive kick in the morning.
Isn't that wonderful?
Yeah.
And do you have you got to the stage now where you have people over and entertain a little bit?
Not as yet. Just because I'm still in the process of doing my garden out the back, and so I've put in all seeds and flowers and some bulbs in the front. And going to my neighbour across the road is taking me to get some old red bricks, so I can do a nice teardrop in the middle with a feature for my apricot tree in the front yard, and then garden bed around the outside. So it should look nice when it's done. So
compared to when you were homeless last time to now, talking to me about what you've just described, tell me what's going through your head.
This is the best possible outcome. This is something that was promised back in 1983 and by Bob Hawke, and it's happening. This is actually happening. The homeless are getting off the street, and we're being given a chance to make a life for ourselves. And so I'm taking that bull, grabbing it by both horns and riding it into the ground.
That is absolutely sensational, Stephen. How's your mental health?
Great. Ever since I found the answer for myself, I use it as a remote control, basically. I worked out for myself that everything we thought were feelings, none of them are a feeling. They're actually attitudes. That includes love, sadness, happiness, all of them, joy, guilt, the lot. They're all attitudes. And then I thought, well, if none of them are feelings, where are the feelings? I knew we still had them. And then it dawned on me, of course, when we smile or frown, laugh or cry, heat up, shake or sweat. 7 things we do if we're feeling an attitude. Now, if that makes sense to people out there, that is the remote control to your own mental health. You can choose to be happy at any moment you want. You have the right to be sad, but when you've had enough of being sad, you can choose to be happy. And ever since that moment, I have never had a bad day. I have bad moments, but I can turn around and press the happy button and choose to be happy. So, yeah, my mental health is better than it's ever been.
And as a result of your mental health being as good as it's ever been, I'm presuming you're able to make more considered decisions and decisions that are not necessarily right, because you'll make wrong decisions occasionally here and there, and I don't mean wrong in a bad sense, but decisions that you're comfortable with.
Yeah, well, I have this attitude of I only do what makes sense to me. If it doesn't make sense, I just won't go there. And I trust my intelligence nowadays, so I don't doubt myself. You know, the old adage will be like, oh, yeah, maybe I shouldn't do this. Oh, well, and then we doubt ourselves. And then what happens afterwards when we work out, we knew it all along, so we beat ourselves up. I don't do that anymore. I trust my intelligence. First thing that pops into my mind is the right thing, because we are instinctually tuned to protect ourselves.
And when you beat yourself up and then you suffer shame, that is so tiring, isn't it?
That's exactly what leads to a mental health issue.
It's debilitating, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It is. And of course, our mental health directly correlates to our physical health. We can talk ourselves into being ill by just thinking bad things about ourselves.
No, and I completely get what you're saying, Stephen. Absolutely, 100%. Because you actually did a mental health course, didn't you?
Yeah, I did Cert 4 in mental health and the GAP training.
So what is that?
I didn't end up doing the test in the end because the answers weren't there, so I didn't bother with a certificate. There was no point.
So you mentioned that. What is that? What's a Cert 4? What is that actually?
That's pretty much the basis of getting the right tools to help people in mental health.
Gotcha. How long did that last?
We did it, it was all day, but we did it each week. We'd come in once a week. And, we'd do a full day on, there were 2 days around alcohol and other drugs. Then there was the culture, learning about culture. And, there was quite a bit. There was quite a bit involved. It was,
Stephen, how important do you believe it is to one's mental health to overcome one's addictions? And what I mean by that is whether it be a drug addiction, whether it be a gambling addiction, whether it be an alcohol addiction. How important is it?
Oh, it is crucial. It is crucial. I mean, the alcohol and drugs, they're more, I see that as people self-medicate. You know, they're feeling down, so they have a few drinks, or they might have a few cones of pot, or they smoke some ice, and it makes them feel good for a time. But then when you come down again, you're back into that same frame of mind. So it's
and presumably it's the whole thing's self-perpetuating. So when you're feeling down, you take the drugs or you take the alcohol or you do whatever you do to make yourself feel better. And then, of course, the next morning you feel bad again, and then you start the whole cycle again. And before you know it, you're addicted, and you've been addicted for 6 months, and then it's really difficult to get off, Yeah,
absolutely. You've got to be, for you to get away from drugs or alcohol, or for you to start the healing process of mental health, you have to be 100% ready to go forward and be 100% honest about it.
Yeah, and committed.
Yes, absolutely.
And Stephen, how important then are the network of people, or the people that orbit you, you know, the people that are around you? How important is it that those people are behind you as well?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean, if they're not behind me and they're not supportive, then I don't have them around. It's not worth it to me. If they're not in their right state of mind, then I really can't have them around if I'm trying to heal.
Yeah, because the temptation is too great. When I was in when I was in rehab just under 2 years ago, there were a number of ice addicts that I was in rehab with, and one of the commitments that they had to make when they finally finished their 2 or 3 months was to disassociate themselves with their dealers and also those people that they used to smoke ice with, which is difficult in a lot of ways because because a lot of those people are their friends. Some of them aren't. Some of them are just acquaintances. But that is a really, really big step, isn't it? And that takes courage.
Oh, absolutely. To step away from those links to it. And you're correct that quite often they are your friends. But and then to break away from that, if it's everyone around you, you're alone all of a sudden. And that's a scary thing, you know, like that does...
Yeah, without any doubt. Stephen, thank you so much. I really appreciate you having a chat to us. Very, very well put. You explained your situation beautifully. You are very much an inspiration. You're an inspiration to me just hearing your story and hearing the commitment in your voice. And not only that, you're also, you're not just talking the talk, you're walking the walk by going out and doing something as simple as holding up a sign telling people to smile. You know, it doesn't cost them anything and you'll feel better. Where are you off to tomorrow? Where do you go to tomorrow?
Tomorrow morning I do the same. I go and sit in Topham Mall. Yep. Right at the end of Topham Mall on Curry Street there, and just when people come past, if they give me a smile, I engage. If they don't, then they're not ready. No, absolutely. But, I'd say have a great day and thanks for your smile. And it inspires me too, because every smile I give, if I get one back, there's 2 smiles in that, and I feel better. So by the end of it, I end up having a great day. And what's your sign saying for tomorrow? Smile for you. Smile for you. And do you change that? Do you change that sign each day? Yeah, I certainly do. I actually had one of my old signs out today, which is a question I ask myself every morning, and it's, what good is one that does not strive to better our world? That's a great way to conclude this very, very poignant interview. Stephen, thank you so much. Congratulations on turning your life around, and I really appreciate you having a chat to us. And by the way, I'll be podcasting this interview as well, and you can hear that on my mental health show. But also, a really, really good article was written by you, as you know, by Cole James from who works for Adelaide now. It's a ripper of an article, and if you're listening and you'd like to read that article as well, just go to Adelaide now and look up Stephen Coard's name. That's StephenCoard. Stephen, thank you so much indeed, my friend. You're welcome, Mark, and it's a pleasure to talk to you, and it's great to know that you can understand being, you've walked the walk yourself. So well done, my man. I have to say well done for doing what you've done for yourself. Thank you, Stephen. I appreciate it. You look after yourself and keep making people happy and keep making them smile, eh? I'll give it a good shot.